Alright, now maybe the thing will start working correctly. Hello, folks. Welcome. We are glad to have all of you back here with us. Before we get started, please rise or at least put your hand over your heart for the playing of the National Anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's get this party started, folks. Let's go Brandon, FJB. Let's go Brandon, FYT.
I'm lost and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here. 'Cause no one's ever
Let's go Brandon, let's go Brandon.
Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her?
Let's go Brandon, FYT.
What's the truth?
FJB.
In this riddle,
let's go Brandon.
Is love really just this simple?
Can't you see?
I can't seem to find my way.
That Brandon is actually a commie.
In this world that never stays.
So let's go Brandon, FJB. Let's go Brandon, FYT. That's right.
What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her?
FYT, FJB. Let's go Brandon, even though he's a commie. Ha! Brandon lives in a wonderland of confusion.
Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion?
I'll go with dark delusion.
Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Let's go Brandon, he's a commie. Let's go Brandon, FYT, F-lips. FYT, FJB. Brandon that lives in a wonderland of confusion, doesn't he though? So good to see all you folks here. Quick disclaimer coming up. We'll get this party started. Let's go, Brandon. FYT and FJB. Shout out to Canadian truckers. Honk, honk.
Rip'n Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rip'n Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness, this is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere. And we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 9th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we continue our State of Mystery series with the great state of New York. Definitely going to be filled with a lot of paranormal, I have a feeling, as New York is already a really strange city on the surface. I can't wait to find out what lies beneath, and we'll find out about all that and more here in just a moment. But first, let's see who we do have over here in our YouTube chat rooms. Excuse my voice, I am getting over a bit of a head cold, as I'm sure some of you guys know. Great to see everybody tonight. Got you guys fired up there, I see, with the Let's Go Brandon, FJB. Prairie Fire says, hello Prairie, hello Arrows, glad you're back. We're glad to be back over on the ripinrabbithole.com. We're always on the Darkwolf's Den Show, but we're glad to be back this week as we did take a week off for the weather. Well, for having a cold, let's be honest. AJ the Rippin' Rabbit checking in with a thumbs up. Glad to see you, AJ. Raider Champion, in the words of Randy Quaid, we're back, that we are. Maggie's Ace says, hello, Dark Wolf and everyone. Hello, Maggie's. Glad to have you here. Sandy B, glad to see you. Who else we got here? Been hanging out backstage with Prairie Fire. That's been lots of fun, hanging out with them. Catherine M, glad to have you along for the party. See who all we have here. Prairie Fire says, Bet Sitaro gets one of those Brandon pieces that is being sent to everybody. I'd be willing to bet you are right. I know somebody that won't be applying for one of those. Brenda Mitchell, Inspired Journey. Glad to see you, man. Danny Mull. That's all over in the Rippin' Rabbit Hole chat. Also, the Canadian truckers say honk, honk. That's right. Chris Spivey over in the Darkwolf's Den Show chat. Great to see you, Chris. Yuck, not a fan of New York. Don't blame you. Never been there, but it's only a place I think I would like to visit. Definitely not stay. JoJo's checking in, asking which part was the worst and giving a list of reasons. Hobo Kai Cop. Glad to see you. Hobo Cop says, let's go truckers. Let's go truckers. That's right. Tommy Apple says, hey guys. Hey Tommy, glad to see you. Big shout out, guys. What's going on in Canada? They are definitely winning. If you guys don't know, there has been some change in their mandates and laws across some of those provinces. We can only guess that the fact that all of Canada is inspired by these truckers and are behind them might be the reason that we're starting to see the big boys back off a little bit, folks. But we've got a lot of fun stuff to cover tonight, guys. And whether you are listening on YouTube, hanging out with us in the chat rooms, or after the fact on BitChute or Rumble, we appreciate having every last one of you guys along for the ride. If you are listening over on BitChute or Rumble, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and hitting that subscribe button for us, we would really appreciate it. And of course, before we can dive into the fun meat of this episode, which is the state of mystery of New York, we have two more fun little segments we must do. The first of which we call Today in History. On this day in 1950, Senator Joseph McCarthy lays charges that the State Department is infested with 205 communists. I think we need another Joseph McCarthy in our day, because it seems we once again are infested with even more communists than that. Anyway, Joseph McCarthy made the charge on this day in 1950, and that is today's segment of Today in History.
Say what?
Our quote of the day today comes from Bill Murray. He says, and I quote, "I didn't give you the finger, you earned it," end quote. I thought it very fitting for New York. Get out of here. Anyways, that is today's segment of
Say what?
I can think of a few people who have earned that particular finger, at least in my book. And some of those folks live and work in a state called New York. Our state of mystery tonight, as we carry on the series with a state that is quite an older state of the Union, of course. A very historic city that I expect to have a lot of strangeness surrounding it, aside from the nightlife and people walking the streets there. We know that has a strangeness all its own, but when you dig deeper and get outside of New York City, you find that there's even more strange that you don't normally hear about in New York. Like the cryptids. You don't really hear about a lot of New York cryptids. However, it has its fair share. And our friend Ben Miller is back tonight to tell us all about them. What do we got in New York, Ben?
New York has quite a few interesting creatures roaming about, but oddly enough, for such a large landmass, it has quite a few aquatic-based ones.
Now, I gotta say, I am a little surprised by that, Ben, I know New York's on the ocean, but we don't really think of it as being a lot of water around the state, right? Usually we just think of New York City, which has its own fair share of water issues, but what kind of cryptid water creatures do we have in New York, my friend?
As stated previously, New York has quite a few aquatic cryptids, with Champ from Lake Champlain probably being the most famous. Although, this is one that is actually considered shared between here and Vermont.
Of course, we have mentioned Champ on this show quite a few times as another Loch Ness type creature, even though they claim that the Loch Ness monster now is an eel, so take that for what you will. Another giant eel then, the biggest eel I've ever seen, is what that would be. But there's Champ, but if you're interested in that one, I'm not going to go deep into it because, like he mentioned, that is a famous cryptid, and that's not something that we normally cover on this show. We look for the cryptids that you don't normally get to hear about.
Now, New York has 11 bodies of water that are known as Finger Lakes, and they are said to have been created by glaciers. Many, but not all, of these actually have a depth that is well below sea level, and are fairly long. The second largest one is called Cayuga Lake, with a depth of 435 feet and is around 40 miles long.
So this lake sounds like it is more than within the parameters needed for a large cryptid creature of some type. And let's keep in mind, of all the bodies of water on the planet, we've explored a very small amount and know very, very little of all the creatures that could and more likely than not do exist in the lower depths that, who knows, may come up to the upper depths every now and again. So the lake and water cryptids, I've said a number of times, is something that I don't discount as much as some other cryptids, because we know very little of all the waters in this world and what they may hold.
Under these glistening waters is said to be a creature called Old Greeny. This creature has been spotted for quite some time, but the first known sightings occurred in 1828. Not much detail was provided, other than two men were riding past the lake when they saw what they claimed to be a large, long sea serpent.
What I like about this particular encounter, though very little information is given, is that it is from the 1800s. So you could discount one account from the 1800s, but when you start getting more accounts through the years, you have to take a second look and suppose something may actually be happening, right? How many grains of sand do you need to build a beach?
Other reports would follow this one, but none had a lot of detail. Then in 1929, sightings began to flood in of people seeing a large serpentine creature that was between 12 and 15 feet long, and it had a triangular head with many sharp teeth.
What is interesting about this case so far now, we have found out that the creature is 12 to 15 feet long, which is the standard sea monster that we hear about, from the Loch Ness Monster to Champ to the one out in California whose name all of a sudden escapes me. Tahoe Tessie, there we go. Only took me a moment there to pull that up, but it fits the features of all these different creatures that we keep hearing about over and over. The only difference between this and some of them that we've heard about is the head. You remember a little while back we discussed one that had the same diameters in body type, but it had the head of a horse. So we have these different heads or different features, but the features that are also the same. It's almost like breeds of dog, right? A bulldog has a different head than a chihuahua. A chihuahua has a different head than a Great Dane or a greyhound. And a lot of times you can tell what type of dog they are by the shape of the head, right? So it only stands to reason that nature would do this same thing. We see many differences between even male and female in a lot of species in nature. So once again, it would stand to reason that if these creatures do exist all across the country and even all across the world, that there would be these small natural variations in creatures, but you would still have the same type of creature, right? So you still have the sea serpent, but the head's shaped differently. However, it's still 12 to 15 feet long, sharp teeth, things of that nature, right?
In 1974, a teenage boy named Stephen Griffin was swimming in the lake when he suddenly felt a tooth-filled mouth clamp down on his arm. It did this.
And Okopogo mentions prairie fire, as well as Flossie mentions Bill. Is it friends with Flossie? It may be. Greeny mentions Sandy B. So there are a number of these creatures, these sea creatures, serpent-type creatures that match these descriptions. One also had a wolf head, says JoJo's. I don't know what's going on over on the Darkwolf's Den Show. It looks like they have attempted to cut the feed off on some over there again. Let's be honest, YouTube is not my friend and hasn't been for a long time.
This with enough force that it actually broke the bone. He managed to escape the attack, but he claimed the beast was massive and had an eel-like body. Then in the spring of 1979, a scuba diver named Jack Marshall was on his boat with some friends when he noticed what he thought was a 30-foot-long log floating on the surface. They slowed the boat down for fear of hitting it, and just as they got near, they realized it was actually a living being, and it slowly submerged under the water.
Now, this is one of the subtle clues that we can derive from this particular case file that we've derived from a number of these sea creature case files, and that is the fact that they're always seen sunbathing or seen on a rock or seen on the surface, and once they are noticed by humans and notice that they are noticed by humans, they tend to disappear under the water, back into a hiding place, not be aggressive or try to kill people, at least not in most of the case files. Mind you, there's always going to be one or two that you can point to and say, no, look here, this was aggressive. Yes, maybe one. That's just like saying because a bulldog is aggressive, all breeds of dog are aggressive. That's not fair, right? So once again, we can tell from these case files that all these different sea creatures, a majority, okay, of these different sea creatures shared this also, that they hide when they're seen. They have this way of disappearing under the water instead of attacking when seen by humans. It's just another interesting data point that we find across all these different case files. When you start to see these same subtleties, these same pieces of information come up over and over and over in all the different case files, you have to take a second look, right? You have to start to wonder, hey, maybe there is something going on here.
Finally, on December 4th, 2009, a man visiting from Pennsylvania stated that while standing on the bank, he saw the creature rise up out of the water only 100 feet from him. He stated it had a triangular head and many sharp teeth, and it appeared not to notice the man. It stayed in this position for some time before sinking back beneath the surface.
Again, the creature is non-aggressive. It's merely moving around, observing, then disappears. But I want to tackle this triangular head real quick. We know for a fact that that shape moves the best through the water. Why do you think boats are built in a wedge shape, right? A triangular shape. This would be and we've seen many creatures like that built in that shape. This is a very natural shape for an aquatic creature to take because it cuts through the water most efficiently, right? It would be good for a hunting species, if it's hunting fish, hunting aquatic life, to have that triangular shape of the head. It would actually be the most expected one, in my opinion, once again, due to the efficiency of movement through the water of the triangular shape, right?
Keeping with our aquatic topic, we have a really odd story surrounding the Onondaga Lake.
Now, I think we have figured out the problem we had over here on YouTube. I think I know why they were messing with at least one channel. Probably hadn't made it to the other yet. We left the American flag up too long, folks. I have a feeling they don't like the American flag that much, so because we left it on the screen too long, I think they started messing with us. Seriously, shout out to JoJo's. Appreciate you letting me know I left that up there. I totally forgot to switch it over to the correct screen, so I think we figured the problem out, folks. You know how commies are.
For many years, the Onondagas and Iroquois people have said that the lake has a strange giant creature living in the waters. What makes this more fascinating is that it is said to resemble a giant salamander, or in some instances, a dragon.
we really don't find a lot of dragons anymore, right? So it's really neat to hear about a North American dragon. And what I find more fascinating clearly than Ben does, I guess, is the fact that it is Native American, not one but two different Native American tribes who report this creature as existing. And as we all know, I give much more credence to Native American legends than I do even modern science.
Sadly, this lake is highly polluted, and in fact for many years the 9 Mile Island nuclear facility was pumping waste into the water. Even as such, stories are around about people seeing something still making this place its home. There is another urban legend from 1972 that states a Boy Scout from Troop 400 found a salamander on a camping trip, but when he realized he couldn't keep it, he placed it in the water. Much like some Godzilla story, the pollutants changed the creature and turned it into what it is today. Granted, this story doesn't account for the indigenous stories, but who doesn't love a good radioactive monster story?
That kind of reminds me, I'm a little bit mad. This sounds a little bit comic bookish, and the reason I say I'm mad is in the comic books, we were told that when humans interacted with this mega doses of radiation, or there was some kind of nuclear accident, that all these people would gain superpowers. I'm yet to see any Japanese flying people, right? Remember Fukushima? I figured we would see some type of superheroes suddenly come out of nowhere, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. I feel like those comic books might have lied to me, right?
Our final aquatic monster is from Seneca Lake, and it is named as such. Sightings in the area were fairly frequent, but this story took a drastic twist. On July 14, 1899, a steamboat with a side wheel named the Otetiani was carrying quite a few passengers over the water. At 7 p.m., the captain, Carlton Harradine, spotted what he thought was an overturned boat 400 yards out. He looked the craft over with his telescope and said it appeared to be 25 feet long and had a very sharp bow and a narrow stern. As the boat neared the object, many of the passengers gathered to see the excitement, which included a police commissioner, 2 commissioners from Public Works, and a geology professor. Once they were 100 yards away, they lowered a boat down to rescue anyone who was stranded in the water. It was at that point that the overturned boat started to swim away, slowly.
Okay, so once again we have the creature doing its best to try to get away from the humans, right? Again, we see this same reaction every time in these creatures, and normally you would think that would be the end of the case file. However, that's only the beginning of this one.
The captain ordered his crew to follow the object at full speed. The object then turned towards the steamer and raised its head out of the water, showing a mouthful of double-rowed teeth.
Jason Starr says, I'm sure scientists are working on it, whatever it is. Over here that was in the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Over here in the Darkwolf's Den Show chat, Hobo Cop says, we need more radiation for superpowers. I'd like to see it happen. Like, I don't know about the whole, crazy multi-arm thing, but I'd love to see some flying people or I'd like invisibility. What would your superpower be?
The captain decided to ram the beast, hoping to take it back to shore, either dead or alive. When the two impacted, the force was enough to knock everyone on board off their feet. As the crew and passengers looked into the water, they saw the creature making a gasping noise before it fell limp, as its back had been broken. They immediately tied onto the creature, and everyone was able to examine the monster, but the weight of it proved too much, and the rope snapped and it sunk to the bottom of the lake. The geologist was able to describe the beast as possibly being an ancient Cladastes. It had a triangular head with double rows of arrow-shaped white teeth, its body was covered in bony horns that were brown and green in color, and its tail was similar to a whale. On a side note, many would assume this was a sturgeon, but they don't have teeth.
and only vaguely do sturgeons body shape wise fit the description. They do have little bony ridges, as do a variety of fish, may I point out, and they do have a semi-triangular head, but they definitely are not the length of which this speaks. And they, once again, as Ben pointed out, the most important part, do not have teeth, especially not in double rows. So it is highly unlikely that this is a sturgeon, and more likely that it matches the description of a variety of sea monsters, not only across New York, but across a variety of states and even other countries around the world.
Continuing our journey, we are moving away from the water. We have a strange story that I really don't have words for.
Speaking of strange, let's see what you guys said about the superpowers over here. Jojo says, I choose flying for my Power Ranger power. Flying wouldn't be a bad one. She said, but I want a green suit. Okay, we can debate on the suit colors. I'm not wearing spandex. I'm not doing it. Forget it. I'll go out in jeans. Invisibility is a great superpower, says Sandy B. Not really a whole lot more superpowered talk over here. Teleportation, says HoboCop. Go ahead. Put me in jail. I'll just teleport right out. I love that one.
In Kinderhook, an odd being, I use that term loosely, was seen on 3 different occasions. In 1962, a 10-year-old boy named Bruce Hollenbeck and his 7-year-old cousin Shari were playing in the woods behind their house. Suddenly, the 2 kids heard a high-pitched whistling sound, and when they looked up, they saw a white blob-like object facing their direction, but behind a tree.
I have to agree, Ben. This is odd even by cryptid standards. I don't know of any other case files that include a non-descriptive blob, but unfortunately and strangely enough, this isn't the only case file in this area of New York. Reading minds, says Maggie's Ace, and invisibility also, says Prairie Fire.
Bruce claimed he felt the creature was staring at them, but he didn't notice any eyes. Not wanting to stick around, they ran back home without incident. 2 years later, a hiker was out for some exercise when he met up with the same white blob floating towards him on the path. He leaped across a 6-foot pond in fright and ran back to tell his friend. After hearing what he saw, they armed themselves with shovels and pitchforks and returned to the site. Suddenly, his friend, who was naturally skeptical, started to shake and point to the trees. There this blob was, floating higher up near the branches, and the 2 friends lost their nerve, dropping their weapons, and they ran away. Finally, in 1978, 14-year-old Russell Lee and Barry Scott were out camping when at night they heard something stomping around outside their tent. When they looked outside, they saw the same being floating nearby. Now, I must say, it is highly likely that these sightings were from someone pranking people, but none of the reports state this. Also, I almost didn't include this one, since if it isn't a prank, it felt more like a ghost. But most all sightings claim it wasn't in a spectral form.
And, I take that back. I was wrong, folks. We have heard of these creatures before, just not under this name. Of course, we have heard of them under the name atmospheric beast. And it seems to me the last time we heard about these creatures, they were more jelly fish shaped, right? I do believe that's what the witness said. So if that's the only differential, we still have a report of these blob-like creatures. There's no telling the creatures that roam this earth, of which we are yet to figure out. But ladies and gentlemen, as you guys know, that music means we have to go ahead and take a break right here. So my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show exclusively on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half of the Darkwolf's Den Show right after this. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, that howl means your weekend has begun. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying your weekend so far? I know I am. If you are, and you haven't done so already, put your thumb up in the air. And if you're listening on YouTube, you can put a finger in the air if you'd like. Speaking of YouTube, I want to take my top hats off, seriously, to all of you who took time out of your day to wish me condolences over the loss of my family member, unexpected loss of a family member this last week. But I really do not know how to tell you how sincerely that brought me so much joy. So my top hats off to all of you who responded to that post. So many of you. 42 James, Sandy B, Moneybank 73, Cynthia Sue Larson, Jennifer Richardson, Azalea, if I said that right, Maggie's Ace, Go-Kart Bob, Philo Fire, Terry Taggart, National Memorial Gardens, Michael Fontaine, Juanito 1975, Overprotected, and Kevin Keith. I can't tell you enough what that means to me to see your support. So thank you. As the weekend continues, Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show will be back again tomorrow night as another episode of the Freedom Flame series will be brought to you. Thursday, February 10th, starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as all shows do. Then I'll return again Friday night with a look at Lyceum. Now, that's a word you might have to look up yourself if you don't already know what it means. But we're going to talk about the lost art of the Lyceum, Friday, February 11th. And then Saturday night, dive into an extra dimension of spirit. That's Saturday, February 12th. That's right, we're going to explore the rabbit hole and the theory of spirit. And then we'll end out the weekend right together with you. Sunday night, February 13th, with a look at hypocrisy. That seems to be a hot-button topic today. So we're going to explore hypocrisy and end out the weekend right together with you again Sunday, February 13th. Now, last Sunday was the first Sunday of the month. It was supposed to be Beat Eugene, but I'm not going to break tradition, so we're not going to have a February edition of Beat Eugene. It's so short anyways. Beat Eugene will return the first Sunday of March, and I'll make sure to change his batteries before then. We'll return back to tonight's State of Mystery for the State of New York for Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. Here's Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show. You're listening to the Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 9th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, in the first half, we went over a number of strange cryptid creatures that inhabit the state of New York, but they're not the only type of creatures, if you will, that inhabit the state of New York, let alone New York City. We know there's a lot of strange creatures that walk around on the surface of that place, right? But there's even more spirit spread across the state.
The historic Vail Cemetery.
Now, this particular cemetery covers over 100 acres and has more than 33,000 people that have been buried within its walls, not to count pets. So there is a large number of possibilities for a haunting. I would be more surprised if a graveyard like this wasn't haunted, right?
Vail is said to be haunted by a handful of apparitions associated with remains on site, with staff and visitors reporting orbs visible to the naked eye.
What do you guys think about the orb situation? This is something somebody asked me the other day. Shout out to Justin, if you're listening, my friend. He come up to me the other day and pointed out that somebody had told him I had a paranormal podcast, and turns out we have a mutual paranormal investigator friend. So shout out to you, Justin, if you're listening, my friend. He asked me the question what I thought about orbs the other day, and I'm gonna be honest with you folks, I'm really torn when it comes to those, because we know for a fact that dust particles and other things can show up in cameras and create the orb effect, right? Especially in these older buildings. Then again, there is a case to be made when there is orbs with a variety of other activity on top. So I guess what I'm saying, and I told him the same thing the other day, if I was given just the orbs as a piece of evidence for a haunting, I don't believe I would take that into as much consideration or give as much credence to that case file, if you will, as I would a case file like this, where the orbs are only one of many pieces of the evidences. So what do you guys think? Go ahead, put a 1 in the chat room if you are 100% orbs are supernatural entities that are photographed in this world or even seen with a naked eye. Go ahead, put a 2 in the chat room if you think that's possibly a number of things that cause the orb phenomena that are naturally explained, and put a 3 if you're like me and completely on the fence and not quite sure if they're paranormal in nature or not. Let's see what else is in this particular case file on top of the orbs.
Strange electrical malfunctions, vehicles stalling or refusing to start, and otherworldly lights in the skies.
Now, here's something else that I would like to touch on. I had a bit of an epiphany the other day. She said the vehicles have issues starting, electrical issues, and we've seen this in a number of case files, especially recently, right? And it's been a question in paranormal research for a while, why particularly electricity would be needed in order to manipulate reality from a spiritual standpoint, right? Why not anything else? Why not oxygen? Why not a number of things? Why electricity? Then I got to thinking about it the other day and was having a conversation with yet another person. I talk to a lot of people, don't I? And we were discussing the electrical output of the body, right? And the fact that our body is completely electrically run. So the soul would be used to manipulating the electric energies in order to manipulate the body. We're told everything in the body is run off electrical energies. We know that for a fact from science, right? So that's still not to negate a soul. The idea that the soul actually has the ability to interact with the electricity of the body and move the arms, create thought, so on and so forth through the brain, not of the brain, right? And manifest into this reality in that form. So it would only make sense, it would only beg to reason or stand to reason that when the soul is released from the locks of the body, if you will, that in order to continue to interact with physical objects, they would need to do what they know best and interact with the electrical potentials around in order to manipulate objects in the real world. Heck of an epiphany to me. I really believe that would be the case. That would also explain why the soul definitely keeps the personality and traits of the human. It is literally the person that was in the meat suit just released from the meat suit at that point and trying to still interact with a reality that has a hard form that was only able to be interacted with by the soul to begin with because of the electrical usage of the human body.
A range of translucent silhouettes, shadowy figures, and apparitions in clothing spanning the eras have been encountered, and many have described hearing a ghostly voice, crying, or even singing, always from a distance. Lastly, a number of reports detail extreme cold spots, the feeling of never truly being alone, and the sensation of being touched by unseen hands. And several accounts tell of statues on site crying or bleeding from their eyes, or even turning their heads to follow those passing.
Okay, that case file just got really creepy, like really quick, right? Holy crap. I don't know about you guys, statues moving, that's creepy to me. Statues aren't supposed to move. Then again, that electrical potential, right? No telling what can happen. But let's see what you guys said about the potential of orbs being paranormal. Remember, 1, if you think they are definitely paranormal activity. 2, if you think they are just completely explainable natural phenomenon activity. And 3, if you are on the fence like me. Let's see what you guys had to say. And it's actually quite an interesting mix of numbers over here, as starting in the DarkWolf's Den Show YouTube chat, we got Hobo Cop says 1, absolutely spiritual. My Life DIY popping in with the 1 also, absolutely spiritual. Jojo says 1, seen faces in orbs. So over in the DarkWolf's Den chat, we're pretty sure over there that it is a spiritual nature. Michael Fontaine says 2.4 gigahertz. I do believe that might be the human body. I'm not 100 on that. Maggie's Ace over in the Rippin' Rabbit Hole says orbs equals energy. Prairie Fire says 2. Natural causes. Earth Daughter says 2 natural causes. Sandy B 3, not sure. She says orbs are spirits, I think. Earth Daughter coming in with maybe some are little sprites, but not all of them. I'm not opposed to that. I totally believe in the fairies and the little people. Sandy B, yes, we have electricity inside of us. Isn't that an interesting thought, right? Greater Champion 2.3. So more likely than not, it is natural phenomenon according to him, but he's not sure. Maggie's Ace coming in with the 1. Maggie's Ace is good guesstimate, Dark Wolf. Need to do a serious show on what the soul is. Definitely do. I've got a list of ideas. You mentioned some ideas a couple weeks back. I do have those on the list also, as we have a number of shows planned. Subject of soul, very intriguing to me, she says. And if you're a paranormal investigator and you're visiting New York, perhaps you'd like to stop and have a beer. Maybe you can find a haunted tavern like the next one on our list.
The White Horse Tavern. The White Horse Tavern, located off Hudson and 11th Streets in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan, is a historic restaurant and tavern holding the title of actually being the second oldest continuously operating bar in the whole of New York City. Historically, the site was first opened in 1880 as a longshoreman's bar, catering to the area's dock workers and manual laborers, and later, through the 1950s, it would pick up a reputation amongst reputable writers and artists of the day, including Welsh poet Dylan Thomas.
And I can tell you, I have actually sat at the same bar as Ernest Hemingway sat in at one time, probably in his old seat, right? That's honest to God's truth. Where I lived when I lived in Idaho is where Mr. Hemingway is actually buried. So he spent a lot of time in this town, and I've heard rumors that the area is haunted by him, but I've not seen any evidence just yet, unlike this particular bar.
Local legend tells this old establishment is haunted by the spirits of those who loved it in lives long past.
Oh, and I missed one answer. My apologies. Freedom Convoy says honk, 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 honk. I agree. Freedom always and forever.
With both staff and guests frequently reporting extreme cold spots, disembodied footsteps when the building is closed, and objects that move on their own.
I can't help but wonder if the cold air is the ionization or maybe an addition of ions, I'm not sure, but a change in the ionization of the air itself. I wonder if that could be what's causing the extra cold spots. Just a theory.
Across the property, accounts tell of drinks emptying themselves or disappearing entirely, and several have described feeling as if they're being closely watched or followed by someone or something unseen.
Now, I don't know of many stories where the spirits actually are able to drink things from this side. That's a little different.
The most famous legend surrounding the White Horse tells that in 1953, Dylan Thomas stopped in to take 18 shots of whiskey before stumbling back to Hotel Chelsea, where he succumbed to poor health, likely mixed with alcohol poisoning, and died days later. Dylan's apparition has been sighted at the tavern, usually right near what many claim was his favorite table.
Now here's a ghost partying even in death, spending his whole life in a tavern on both sides. I don't know, that's a strange case file. It almost seems like a caretaker ghost Dylan does, caretaking his own table, mind you, but a caretaker just the same.
The Execution Rocks Lighthouse.
Wow, with a name like that, I expect this is probably going to be a pretty creepy one, right? What do you guys think?
The Execution Rocks Lighthouse, located in the middle of the Long Island Sound and standing on the border of New Rochelle and Sands Point, New York, is a historic lighthouse that's location derives its name from the many who met their fates upon its viciously rocky shore, namely through colonial times, either by shipwreck or in instances in which criminals were left chained to die.
You gotta admit, that would be an incredibly brutally punishing way to die.
Not surprisingly, the whole of the area has been surrounded by rumors of hauntings resulting from countless torturous deaths. And before being executed, serial killer Carl Panzram actually wrote that he'd murdered 21 people, many of whom he'd dumped right near the light. Across the rocky spit, many have reported orbs and photographs, inexplicable battery deaths.
So here again we have our orbs as well as our electrical interference, which is again really common, as we know, amongst a variety of case files.
Strange forms in the backgrounds of photographs, and EVPs captured in recordings or transmissions.
EVP recordings, or electronic voice phenomena recordings, of course, are another aspect that they don't mention as much in the speakeasy. However, we know from previous studies we've done on this show that those are a very real phenomenon of interaction between the living and the so-called dead, or the spiritual side.
Many nearing Execution Rocks have reported being overcome with a feeling of extreme sadness and dread, and those who've braved the light have recounted hearing disembodied voices, screams, and moaning emanating from thin air. Lastly, at night, those present have described encounters with a range of shadowy entities and apparitions in clothing spanning the eras.
So in this particular case file, you have ghosts from a variety of time frames. It's more of a question in my mind, like, I wonder how they interact with each other, let alone interacting in the physical world. That might be why it carries such a strange amount of paranormal activity, as the number of ghosts here might be a bit overwhelming.
With the New Amsterdam Theater. This prestigious theater remains open into the present, showcasing stage performances of Disney favorites. The most famous legend surrounding the New Amsterdam tells the property is haunted by the spirit of one Olive Thomas, an actress and Ziegfeld Follies chorus girl who died, according to official ruling, by an accidental ingestion of mercury bichloride, which, in a drunken stupor, it said she mistook for a sleeping tonic. Rumors surrounding Olive's death, telling of suicide or even murder, persist into present times, and many have reported sighting her full-bodied apparition across the premises. A photo of Olive is kept at every entrance, allowing for employees and guests to greet her by way of saying hello or by blowing a kiss as they walk in, a ritual it's said that keeps her paranormal mischief to a minimum. Also reported throughout the New Amsterdam are objects sighted moving on their own, doors that open and close by themselves, and inexplicable electrical malfunctions. And a number of guests have described the sensation of being tapped on the back sharply by something unseen. Lastly, a handful of theatergoers have recounted instances in which they were helped to their seats by a beautiful female staff member, closely matching the description of Miss Thomas. And many claim this is just Olive doing her part to help out when things are at their most stressful.
And this here is the classic example of the caretaker ghost. Always willing to help out and stepping in and greeting people and just basically caretaking the property, right? Something that we find quite more often than even I would have expected. These are usually your more friendly ghosts to encounter. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the haunted mystery of New York, of all the hauntings we could fit into at least to the second half. So what do you guys think, from the cryptids to the hauntings and everything in between? Do you guys think that the state of New York is a paranormal state of mystery, or perhaps we're barking up the wrong tree? In the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and
you be the judge.
That's right, Bubby. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 9th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday, February the 10th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, as all shows on the network started that same time, as we will be back to discuss civil disobedience. That's right. How has it been used in the past, and how will it be used in the future to align with the goals that the citizenry agrees with? We're going to discuss all that and more on tomorrow, Thursday, February 10th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central. The Darkwolf's Den Radio Show Freedom Flame series returns in full force. That's right. Then on Friday, February the 11th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, AJ is going to be back to school us on the topic of Lyceum. What is Lyceum? Well, I guess you'll just have to come learn and be schooled on what he's going to be laying down on Friday, February the 11th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central. Then on Saturday night, February 12th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit comes back to the airwaves again to carry the weekend on with you as he discusses spirit. As we discuss every week on this show, there's so many interesting aspects of spirit. What is it? What does it mean? And how does it affect your everyday life? AJ will cover at least most of that on Saturday, February the 12th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 Central. Then he's going to round the weekend out right with you as he discusses hypocrisy. So much hypocrisy in today's world. All you have to do is open a newspaper or look around and you can see it everywhere, and especially in the political spectrum, folks. And that's going to round the weekend out right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the rippinrabbithole.com. Make sure you hop on over to the rippinrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. Over there, you're going to sign up for the Backstage Pass. This is going to give you access to all of the rest of the fun aspects of that site. And there are many, like our up-to-date news and the recipes that are always on the front homepage, but there's also the Listen Live section, which we seem to be having a bit of a issue with the radio player over there right now. So in the meantime, you can check out the groups or the forums that exist over on the rippinrabbithole.com. There's a variety of different groups, from the Darkwolf's Den Show to the Rippin' Rabbit Hole to Lucid Dreaming and Spirit and many, many, many others. The Mandela Effect and the International Mandela Effect Conference has a group over there also. While you're there, also make sure to check out the 24/7 Backstage Lounge, where I'm going to be here in just a couple minutes, and I'd love to see the rest of you guys there hanging out with the rest of us rabbits as we continue to discuss the topics of the day. Also, make sure you hop on over to our specialized social media, privatized social media wall down the rabbit hole, where you can freely share information without being shadow banned or any other craziness that those communist networks like to pull. With that said, folks, we have to get out of here. So on behalf of AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved with Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you've been listening to the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show exclusively on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How yeah. That's right. Oh, I almost forgot to mention real quick, for those that don't know, we have been doing Censored Freedom, our new morning show. Will be playing on the radio player throughout the day. So if you missed the original broadcast, you will be able to go to the radio player and watch it. We are also putting that up on BitChute and Rumble, as it is a wrap-up of the day's stories to get your next day started. There you go. So definitely make sure you check that out. Also, if you do go over to BitChute and Rumble, make sure that you hit us up with the subscribes and all that, because we really need to grow those channels over there, folks.
Unlocked and into the dark.
Let's go, Brandon.
Some things are better left unknown.
FYT.
I'll never find you here.
FJB.
'Cause no one's ever.
Let's go, Brandon. He's a commie. Let's go, Brandon. We just want to be free. Let's go, Brandon. FJB FYT.
Oh, what a widow. A peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her?
Great to have you here, Errol. Great show, says Errol. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys. Great show. Great show. I appreciate you guys. Great audience. The truckers say, honk, honk.
What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays.
Let's go, Brandon. FJB. Let's go, Brandon. We just want to be free. He's a commie. Let's go, Brandon. FYT. By the way, let's flush Turdo.
What a widow, a peaceful spider.
Honk, honk.
When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider.
Flush turdo.
Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her?
So flush turdo. Let's go, Brandon. Honk, honk. FYT, FJB. He's a commie. We just want to be free.
Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion.
Wait, we need to fix these lyrics. Check it out. Biden lives in a wonderland of delusion. That's better.
Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion?
Brandon's lost in a wonderland of confusion. Let's go, Brandon, FJB. Let's go, Brandon, FYT. Take out the trash and flush the turdo. Let's go, let's go. Let's go, Brandon, FYT. Let's go, Brandon, FJB. Let's go, Brandon. We just want to be free. Let's go, Brandon. Flush turdo. Honk, honk, honk. We stand with the truckers. We stand with freedom around the world, wherever it may be, as well as we can keep the freedom flame burning. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow night. Let's go, Brandon.